The Potters travel down south to take on Watford in what could be a real tough test for Schumacher's men, but hopefully they bring back the 3 points. So let's preview our opposition, looking at Watford's recent results and some key threats that we need to be aware of. The man in charge of the Hornets is, of course, Tom Cleverley. So with that, you don't know what you're going to get with Watford this season. It's a total unknown. Of course, when you look at people's predictions for how Watford are going to do this season, you don't really know what's going to happen, really. It's one of them where they could kick on. And you look at the games that Tom Cleverley has had in charge of Watford. He's had 11 games in charge, 4 wins, 5 draws, and 2 losses. So looking at that, it's quite decent. I think there's some promising signs there, but you look at the goals, of course, a lot more for than against for this Watford side. So they are looking more attacking. It's not as though they're playing boring football, but it's what you're going to get with it over this championship season. Now, there's definitely promising signs, don't get me wrong. Of course, being a player in the championship for Watford, you'll know exactly what happens, but it's one of them where he isn't obviously an experienced manager, but he knows the game. He'll know what happens. He'll know his teammates and the players that he's coaching. So it's one of them where they could kick on this season and be a total shock, but it could also go, oh, well, they haven't really got loads and loads of players that have bags of quality like Watford have done in the past. So will they be able to deliver for Watford this season? It's a total unknown. I think a number of goals will go in at both ends in a Watford game. I really do. Nothing against them, but I just think there'll be quite a few times this season where there'll be quite a goal fest. I must admit. I think you can see that in the record that he's got. It's one of them where I just think it's an end-to-end. That's what you expect with Watford teams. And I just feel like, do they have enough quality to dominate games and get them right up the table? I don't know, but it's definitely something that we'll have to see. Now, of course, 3-2 away at Millwall. It's one of them where you got it over the line. You got the 3 points, and for a start of the season, that's pretty decent. Of course, Cleverley will want to have a good start and kind of silence the critics. A lot of people will say, oh, he's not good enough, and oh, you shouldn't have a manager like him in Watford. But you look at Watford's recruitment of managers in the past, and it's like a merry-go-round. So could it this time bring in a bit more stability in the club? He knows what the fans want, so could that then kind of correlate to how they do on the pitch? We'll definitely have to see. And then, of course, on the midweek in the Carabao Cup, of course, Stoke getting a 2-0 win against Carlisle. They too did the same against the League 2 side in MK Dons. They put 5 past them at their ground, and of course, Torment, the former Potter, getting a hat-trick. One thing on that hat-trick was, of course, it wasn't the most beautiful hat-tricks in the world. It wasn't the most prettiest, but a hat-trick's a hat-trick. The goals were in the back of the net, and it's Torment who's done it, that obviously wasn't able to do as much for Stoke when he was in the red and white stripes. But they do have some other key players that Stoke definitely need to be aware of. Now, when you think of course, a Watford squad, and in the past who they've had in the championship season that, of course, Stoke have played against, the likes of João Pedro, of course, Ismail Assar, players with real quality who were a massive threat when they played against Stoke, and in the league season, their stats were just superb. And you've got to say that with them losing them to obviously elsewhere, have they been able to replace them? And is it a case of, yes, their recruitment has been decent in terms of players in and selling them off for a better price. Don't get me wrong, that's very good and profitable. But have they been able to replace them and keep that quality and build that momentum for an up-and-coming season? I'm not too sure, but one of the guys that I definitely want to speak about that had a fantastic campaign over the summer was Georgi Chekvetadze. A superb player, plays in the attacking midfield area, of course, with Tom Cleverley playing like a 3-4-2-1 system. He plays in the 2 role that's obviously behind the striker. So for me, when you look at it, he's a very creative midfielder. Of course, was away in the Euros with Georgia, who managed to get to the round of 16. But for me, he's one of them where you just want that moment of quality. You need that bit of creativity, and he brought that against Millwall. Of course, got on the score sheet with an absolute sublime free kick. And it's one of them where in games in the championship, sometimes it'll be a little bit flat, just nothing really between the two sides. So a moment of quality from a player like him could be what separates the side, and obviously gives Watford the points that shoots them up the table. So for me, an attacking midfielder that, you know what, is in his second season at Watford, so has now got that kind of first season under his belt and could really kick on. So Stoke are going to have to be really wary of him. I think he'll be a real key player for Watford against Stoke. I think the likes of Berger and Thompson will probably be asked to kind of watch him, sit on him, and make sure that we don't give him the time and space to get an opportunity to be creative. Now, another player that I just want to mention who could be in contention to lead the line for Watford on Saturday is Mileta Rajovic. Now, the reason I'm speaking about him is he got the win against Millwall for Watford in the 3-2 win, and it's one of them where he got 11 goals last season in what was his first season for Watford in the Championship. So he's looking to kick on. A tall striker, loves to get in the box, and of course against Millwall he did that from close range, and that's what he does best. So you know what, another player who will be knocking on the door to ask Cleverley if he could be in the side. So we'll have to be wary of if he starts. But Wilmot and Gibson did a superb job of keeping Sims absolutely quiet during the game against Coventry, so they may be asked to do that again. But likewise, Watford do have Bayo, who also could play up top, who has played against Millwall and led the line from the starting 11. So in terms of battle for places and players that might be in contention to start against Stoke, you've definitely got that with the two players who could be leading the line. We'll definitely have to be wary of both, and I feel like our backline did well against Coventry, and hopefully they can do again against Watford. So you've got the likes of course, the captain, Musa Sissoko, who's in that midfield, just giving that lovely bit of balance and bit of structure that, of course, they're not going to get too attacking minded. But also the likes of Ryan Porteous, a real solid centre-back, of course, didn't have the best Euros, but we know there's a real decent centre-back in the Championship. So you know what, they have got a good mixture of players. It's just, are they going to work together well, and how are they going to do during this Championship season? Now, Stoke and Watford have, of course, come up against each other a lot of the times while Stoke have been in the Championship. But sometimes it's one of them where Watford have shown their quality and have beat us, so hopefully that doesn't happen this time. So looking at how we did last season, now when we were at home against Watford, it was a 1-0 win. Andre Vidigal getting on the score sheet, and it was one of them where it was quite an end-to-end game. Both teams having their chances, and luckily Vidigal took it well, and we were able to get the 3 points. And then when we travelled to take on the Hornets at their place, it was a 1-1 draw, which saw Ryan Mai getting on the score sheet. So I feel like what is going to happen in this game, and it has happened last season, was both teams will have chances, not end to end in the sense of up one end down the other and constantly. Both teams will be given their chances during the game. It's who takes them. And I think if you can just silence the crowd, get a quick start going, get right in their faces, and get our chances going, and hopefully take one early doors, we silence the crowd, we don't allow them to have that kind of home advantage, and we can give ourselves another 3 points, which will be really solid for this start of the Championship season. But we'll have to see what happens on Saturday. Hopefully it's the way of the Potters, so we'll have to see. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.